Hey there, welcome everyone to Ash to Air Tarot. I am back. It has been a very long hiatus, I know. I apologize for my absence. I actually moved this last year and moved during the pandemic, so it was pretty challenging to move during that time, and it was a very big move. I'm settled now, however, and I feel like I can start getting back to this channel and putting up videos again. I know that being gone for almost a year certainly doesn't inspire a lot of loyalty in terms of people following my channel, but I hope that I'll win you all back over eventually. But I just felt like I needed to give an explanation as to where I've been. But I am in a really great place now. I'm settled. Things are falling back into place in my life, and I'm excited to be back to something that I love talking about and doing, which is reading the tarot. So I wanted to come back with not necessarily an unboxing, but a review of a deck that I feel very, very excited about. I would say that in the last 2 to 3 years, my deck collection has expanded exponentially. I have always been a tarot enthusiast. I started reading tarot from the age of 12 when my mom gave me my very first tarot deck, which was the Aquarian Tarot, which I have another video about that. That was my very first deck, and from then on, it was hooked. Um, my collection now is quite big thanks to this community. Once I started to discover watching videos about tarot on YouTube, there was no turning back, and now I have, I would say, an addiction to purchasing tarot decks. But here's the thing: this is why I love collecting decks as well as reading. Um, I am an artist. I'm primarily in the entertainment industry. I'm a filmmaker, an actress, writer, producer, but I also am a visual artist as well. And so I have a great admiration and respect and understanding for what it takes to be an artist and to choose that lifestyle, which can be challenging to maintain. And so I have a great respect for visual artists and writers who interpret the tarot. And I get what turns me on about collecting tarot cards is that every artist has a different interpretation of something that is universal or archetypal. They're taking archetypal images that hit us in such a deep way, in such a profound way, because they get to our shadow side, our unconscious. They are, a psychological tool to help us to better understand ourselves and our place in the world and in the universe. And so, of course, artists are drawn to wanting to delve into finding their own way of interpreting these cards that represent the human condition. It's more than just divination, right? I mean, there's so many different ways in which we can use the tarot, and it just never it can never get boring or old because the messages are timeless, and the fact that imagery can connect us in such a deep way to our own spiritual connection to our higher self and our intuition. And if you choose to believe the other side, guides, guardian angels, ascended masters, whatever your belief system is, tarot kind of is just an amazing thing. So it doesn't surprise me that artists are drawn to interpreting it. And what I love is seeing all the different interpretations. So I was watching Truth and Story, and when Kelly did the review or the unboxing of this deck, I literally jumped up within like the first, I don't know, 5 minutes of the video and went to see where I could order the deck. Now, it is a mass market deck now. It was released by US Game Systems. So if it's not available yet on Amazon, it will be shortly, I would assume. I purchased mine through an Etsy shop, and I can't remember now off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the description below where I got it. But I know she didn't have very many copies, and but I mean, the fact that it's mass market means you're not going to miss out on this deck. And hallelujah that it is a mass market deck, because I have missed out on so many really cool decks that were independently published, and then, that was it. And they were gone. And, they were on Kickstarter or whatever, and they were backed, and then they never made it past, one printing. And so I am so glad that this is a mass market deck. I'm going to dive in here. And well, first of all, I mean, obviously US Games, they do great now with the boxes are really nice and sturdy and compact. And so, I won't spend too much time on the packaging, but the box is quite nice. For those of you who hadn't noticed already, this is a black and white deck. And that's another thing that, is unique and that I really like is I actually think I only have one other black and white deck in my collection, and that is the Hermetic Tarot, which I don't really use very often. But this deck is really like a sketchbook. The images are sketches. And I just, that's another thing that I was really excited about is I don't have anything like this in my collection. So if you are someone who is into colorful decks, this is not for you then. But I hope that you will give it a chance, because I think you will see the beauty of the imagery in this and the powerful, soulful expression of the detail work in the drawings. And I think that you'll probably be enchanted by it like I have been. So Tarot of the Abyss is by Anna Turian, and Anna has created a lot of other amazing decks. This is actually the first one that I've been able to get my hands on of hers, but I am definitely going to try to get a couple of her other decks. This is the first one in my collection. And one thing that I wanted to say also before diving into actually showing you the cards is the little book is fantastic as well. And I know that, those of us who have been reading for a long time, we don't always feel that we need, the little book because we're intuitive readers. We know the cards so well. We know all the meanings of the cards, especially if you've read all different styles of divination and particularly Rider-Waite Smith. There are so many different iterations of that system. However, I personally feel that a deck isn't complete without a well-written accompanying booklet. So I take the booklets seriously because for myself, I'm a writer, and while being a filmmaker, visual is only half of the story. Being able to express also in words for something like a deck, like a tarot deck, is to me just as important. It's the complete package. So when I read a book and I find the book also insightful, despite all of my knowledge of tarot, I'm really excited because it's an indication to me that the creator really took the time to come from the heart when creating this piece of artwork, which is what I consider these tarot decks to be, pieces of artwork. Just like you would collect paintings and put them up in your house, or sculptures, I consider what these artists do, works of art. So some deck creators are twofold. So they have someone who's the actual visual artist and then someone who collaborates on writing the meanings, and that can be very powerful too. But Anna wrote this book herself, and so she wrote, I'm assuming, all of the interpretations of the cards from her perspective. The book starts off with an introduction about why she chose the symbology of the abyss to create a deck. And I love what she says here. It's the tarot of the abyss is born out of the same notion. The notion of out of nothingness was born the world. We all start off our tarot experience as beginners, a shapeless void as the abyss. With every shuffle of the cards, a little light dawns. With every reading performed, our knowledge and ability improves just a little. We grow, evolve, and develop, metaphorically moving from chaos to cosmos. So, I mean, it's great. It's a great, springboard for a deck. And then she talks a lot about her experience with divination and how it came to her at a young age, and how her aunt was a big influence on her because her aunt read coffee grounds in Romania. And then she goes on to her journey of becoming a reader herself and why she loves tarot and the system of tarot. And so, I mean, all of this personal expression in the book also enriches her artwork, because you do really feel like this is sort of her soul deck. And you get that right away from reading the book. And then, of course, she goes into discussing, for those of us who may be beginners, the major arcana, the minor arcana. And then I like that she also has a little section on the court cards. The court cards tend to get neglected, I think. And I think sometimes court cards are, when people are learning the tarot, one of the last things that really lock in. Oftentimes, I think it's much easier, especially with RWS, to really learn the major arcana first, and then, of course, the minors. But when you get to the court cards, sometimes I think there's a little bit of like other than seeing them as representations of individuals that might be in the querent's life, I think, they're harder for some people to differentiate. So she has a little section on that. And then she goes into discussing this deck and how the deck was born and how she created it. And she talks about what is different in her version of this deck, which is, she says here, after creating the first few cards, I wasn't yet aware that I would pursue this fool's errand. I have always been drawn to black and white drawings, as I find they possess a certain mystique and mystery. At the time I began the creation of this deck, I was searching for black and white tarot decks, but there weren't many to be found. As I continued to add more cards, drawing them became a meditative process I cherished. By the time I reached the end of the major arcana, I realized that this was become my soul deck. I believe decks have their own personality, and like our own, they evolve and progress throughout their development. When I began drawing Tarot of the Abyss, I could make out the faint outline of its character. Even though it was constructed to follow Rider-Waite Smith, there were distinct dimensions that I wanted to incorporate and explore. One such idea was the personal, intimate relationship that the characters would have with you, the reader. For this reason, you will notice the majority of the people in this deck will be looking at you, engaging you in some form or other. And I mean, I love that. And it is so true. Like, I'm getting chills just talking about it, because as soon as I got the deck, typically I have a whole process of cleansing my decks before I start reading with them. And in this deck, I didn't even cleanse it. I mean, it just popped out of the box. I looked at it and I felt connected to it. And I mean, that is something because, you know, for a creator to infuse that kind of power into their artwork that you just connect instantly, that's pretty special. She has some modifications in here which I also find really fascinating, and one specific one is that she has created two alternative cards to the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords. And I think that that's kind of interesting. She's also named some of the major arcana cards differently. The Hierophant has been changed to the Wise One, and Judgment is called the Awakening. And the Hanged Man, she's titled the Hanged One. And the reason for that is because the card is seen through the reader's eyes. So it's from your perspective as the reader. And obviously that could be whomever. So there should be no sex associated to that card. And I just think that's really cool. I mean, that's one of my favorite cards too, which we'll get to here in a minute. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited. But getting back to the Three and the Ten of Swords. So she has these two options, and I like to keep all the cards in the deck when I'm reading with it, but some people may want to take out two and just, so that there aren't duplicates of the Ten of Swords and the Three of Swords. However, I find that what she's done is she's left the original traditional meaning of the cards as the Rider-Waite system. And then she's also taken a spin on it by using the numerology of the card as another interpretation. So like for her, she says in the book, I focus on what the number 3 represents in the mental sense, the idea of the development of knowledge. The number 3 is a combination of 1 and 2. So 1 being the spark of knowledge or gnosis, and 2, which provides us with the ability to make intelligent choices based on thought and experience. So she's basically saying that she's offering readers the option to incorporate these cards as they feel will provide the most effective readings. And I leave them all in because I think it's pretty interesting, especially when you get a reading and you get both Tens of Swords show up. Like I did a reading yesterday and both Tens of Swords and both Three of Swords showed up in the reading, and it was mind-blowing. Anyway, moving on, then she gives these fantastic descriptions of the cards. Let me see if there's one that stands out. Well, let's talk about, the Hanged One. So I was just mentioning that it's from the perspective of, let me get the card so that you can see it. Hang on, I'm jumping the gun here, but I feel like this is we'll get back to looking at all of them, don't worry, but I just want to give you a little taste of how she interprets the cards with her writing. Okay, so the Hanged One. So where am I going here? Okay, here we go. I'm trying to give you the most close-up version without glare. So as you see here, you've got these, you've got this perspective of you being the Hanged One, you, the reader, hanging upside down. You're seeing the birds from upside down. And we feel the predicament of the Hanged One. The world is askew, a dizzying rush of emotions and confusion. We're not accustomed to seeing the world from this perspective. Everything appears strange and yet new. How did the Hanged One get there? Was it his or her own doing, or was it something inflicted upon him or her? We can't assume he's bound in any way, as we really can only see what's in front of him or her. Perhaps it's not as important how he got there, but rather how the situation has changed him and how his perception of the world has since changed. The road ahead of him ends near a home with no one else in sight. No one, that is, except the two inquisitive ravens, Hugin and Munin, Odin's trusted messengers. They represent thought and mind. One of them holds a small branch in his beak as an offering. If the Hanged One appears in your reading, it offers you an opportunity to see things from a different perspective. This is the time when evolution will come about through status rather than action, or stasis, rather than action. The Hanged One brings a period of stillness or even possibly stagnation. It indicates a spiritual evolution achieved only through sacrifice or loss. It can augur a time of discomfort. Still, the discomfort is worth the price, as the reward will be greater than the sacrifice. In life, nothing of value is achieved without some form of sacrifice. Time, energy, comfort, and anything that you personally cleave to can be temporarily affected. No matter the methods, transformation will occur. I mean, you see what I'm saying? The visual is brilliant and the description is brilliant, and there's just so much in this card. So that just gives you a little taste of how completely thought out this deck is. I'm trying to do things with both my hands full here. Hold on a second. Let me put them back so that we can start from the beginning so you can see each and every one of these beautiful cards, starting with the Fool. And she's got some spreads in the back of the deck as well. She's got, I just wanted to show you this, the Abyss spread, which is pretty cool. I've done that. And then, you know, typical spreads that most of us all know, you know, a draw of the day, you know, one card draw, past, present, future, problem, you know, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go through the cards, and I'm gonna just, you know, I'm not gonna talk about each and every one, even though I probably could, because I love this deck so much. But I'm going to try to give you, you know, a really good view of each card, and then I'll touch on the ones that I think are especially standouts for me. But starting with the Fool, you'll notice also as we go along with this that a lot of her images create a sense of fluidity or motion. Her drawing style is very fluid, very circular, which I really, really love. I mean, look at this fabulous magician. She also uses the concept of roots a lot. So trees are a big metaphor in her works, and this idea of rootedness or being interconnected, which is also really, really beautiful. The High Priestess. See, everything is just very fluid, circular, in motion. And I love that. It creates a feeling of activeness, of power. And so that when you see a card like the Hanged One, which is stagnant, it makes more of an impact on you visually. Because, you know, it's saying something, because you're used to seeing all of these cards that look like they're in motion. Look at the Empress is a perfect example of what I just said, of being in motion. Everything, you know, in the background, it's like everything is moving. The Lovers. I just love this card for the Lovers. I love that it's trees. And I love that it's the complicated connectedness of how the roots, I mean, isn't a love relationship, no matter what it is, whether romantic or otherwise, I mean, when we love, it's complicated. It's simple but complicated. And I just think this is just a beautiful way of interpreting this card. The Chariot, we've got swans that fly. Strength. Another fabulous card. And there's that personal connection. That's the, staring right into the reader. And I love that she's cradling the chin of the lion rather than prying his mouth open. There's so much power in this card. The Hermit. So this particular Hermit, doesn't have the lantern, but she's holding this snake, right? Which is, her wielding her power. I mean, this is like, well, the snake, it's such a Jungian symbol for eternity, for infinity. Actually, let's just read a little bit about the Hermit in here. I'm just want to touch on that because I think it's interesting. She walks alone into the desert searching. Her withered face reveals the tests of time she has seen and surmounted. The hermit has no regrets. She has gained profound knowledge of the material world, yet senses that there is more to reality than simply what is visible. In her right hand she grasps a large snake, a symbol of renewal and rebirth. As the snake sheds its skin, as it grows, so shall the hermit shed her old self and reemerge wiser and more whole. Her left hand appears to radiate light, illuminating the path, one step at a time. Her journey is a slow one, but she is in no rush. The hermit has deliberately removed herself from the world in order to subdue the conscious mind. Yeah. So her illumination comes from her mastery of the physical world. Wheel of Fortune. Another great card and another great interpretation where we don't just see the wheel, but we see the woman or this figure with her hand in the wheel or presenting the wheel or manifesting the wheel, which to me is a symbol of the fact that nothing is pure fated destiny. We all have free will. We all are able to get in sync with the wheel of the year, with the tides and the cycles of life. Justice. I mean, wow, is all I can say for that. There's our Hanged One that we talked about earlier. Death. Another fantastic card. Every single one of these, every single one. I mean, I'm blown away. There isn't one card in this deck that I don't resonate with. The Devil. I mean, look at the this feeling of like being bound to something is so strong in this imagery. I get sometimes like a visceral feeling in my body, when I look at these cards. The Tower. What I love about this is that it's this little treetop house, like a kid's play. What do they call them? A tree house, I guess. and that to me is a symbol of an escape in childhood, the place where you go to use your imagination and be away from the adult world and just be within your own pure magic of your childhood, and then suddenly it's upended and thrown off of its perch and these figures are falling from it. And that to me makes this card so much more relatable and more powerful. The Star. Beautiful. The Moon. Sun. The Awakening, which is the Judgment card in our traditional tarot of our Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, this angel hovering over this lifeless body or close to death body. It's just beautiful. The World. Now we're getting into the suits. So let me separate the major arcana and take it out of here. So she starts with the swords, the suit of swords. And once again, you're going to see some repetitive themes here. The trees, the roots, the connectedness, and the fluidity of her drawing style. I mean, I could stop and talk about every single card, but then this video would go on for ages, which I don't want to subject you to. Okay, so here is an example of the additional cards. So the Three of Swords, we've got two versions of the Three of Swords here, and I'm not going to comment on which one is the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. I think that too actually is open to interpretation. I'm going to leave that to you because I don't want to spoil everything about this deck. I really want this deck to be super successful and people to purchase this deck and have the experience that I'm having with it, which is just so special. I find this also very powerful and somewhat disturbing. In a good way. I mean, in a provocative way is what I mean. Not like disturbing, like, oh, you know what I mean. Love this Seven of Swords. Okay, and here we go with the two versions of the Ten of Swords. And I absolutely love this one for so many reasons. You know, the culmination of the end of a cycle of thought, of you know, mastering the suit of the mind. And what better representation than the owl and the, you know, older person who has been there, done that, seen it all, and them facing off. It's just really great. And then we're getting into the Court of the Swords. We have female knights in this deck, which is quite nice for a change. And, you know, I have to say, I love all of the kings in this deck. I mean, the queens are great too. The queens are great too. But for some reason, the kings in this particular deck just really stand out to me. The king is supposed to represent whether, you know, and again, it's not about male or female. If you get the King of Swords in a reading, it could just mean that you're embodying whether you're male or female, you're embodying the qualities of that card, right? Of the archetype of that card. And kings are, you know, the absolute masters of their suit. They have mastered the power of whatever that suit represents. So each one of her depictions of the kings in each suit, I think, really show that strength and that control, that command. Every image, especially the close-up sketches of people's faces, are just so personal, just like she intended. And I think it's It really does work. Her perspective in some of the ways that she, draws these cards, again, they make you feel like you're participating in the event with the images in the card. Like when I'm looking at this card, I feel like I'm below him, watching him defend himself. Like I'm in it, like I'm in, this movie of this world and of her creation, of her world. And it's just really cool. It's very effective. She just did a fantastic job with that. I love that the Ten of Wands is walking towards us rather than away from us. It just puts a completely different spin on the card and allows it to be less how do I want to say this? Like sometimes when we know a card really well as a reader, we get kind of like stuck, and especially on those days where maybe you're not as connected to spirit, where you're not as inspired, or when you have someone that you're reading for that's quite difficult to tap into, you kind of like fall back on what you know about the cards, that's sort of that universal archetype. And so you're not able to like kind of dive into the imagery of the card and interpret it in a way in which is particular to that reading and to that person you're reading for. And when an artist is able to show a card in a way that doesn't give you that, typical Rider-Waite-Smith archetypal read of the, like it opens it up more to interpretation, that's pretty remarkable. And usually cards that are more abstract can do that easier. The fact that, she's sketching a scene, an image, and is still able to do that is pretty amazing to me. I hope that made sense. I feel like it didn't, but some of you may get it. Another fabulous king, mastering his element of fire. Look at that Ace of Cups, man. So dynamic. All her cards about love, the Lovers and the Two of Cups, which are, the two cards in the deck that we readers typically connect to a romance or a love. It's always this interconnectedness, this sort of like you don't know where one begins and the other ends, and that is so often, the beauty of love and the trap of love at the same time. And I love that. I love that she uses that a lot in those cards. Here we are again being drawn into the card as, the third member of this trio of cheering, toasting with cups. Love this. He's remembering that nostalgia. I also love this, that the cups are here and that the choices are here. And I absolutely love this Eight of Cups. To me, this was one of the ones that when I saw Truth and Story doing their review, during her review, I found this card. I think this is the card where I jumped up and I'm like, I got to order this deck right now. It's just, again, just like with the Ten of Wands, instead of walking away from us, she's walking right into us, towards us, and just dumping out what's in that cup with so much conviction and purpose. I just love it. I just love it. Again, being engaged, being drawn into the story. And I love that this suit is battling a storm on a ship. How appropriate, right? And look, even though there's all this chaos, and the page and the knight are struggling a bit, but then when you get to the queen, you start to see still movement, but a bit of calm in her countenance. But then, this is my favorite king in this deck, the King of Cups. Look how composed he is amidst this terrifying storm. And isn't that just everything in that card? Mastering your emotions. The aces in each suit are quite wonderful too, but again, if I talked about every single card in depth, we'd be here all night. Sorry, I'm not trying to speed up too much. I'm just trying to be mindful of staying under an hour here. I love her. I love the Knight of Pentacles. Again, so simplistic, but so personal. Not simplistic, that's the wrong word. It's a simple meaning of this card. Well, no, that's not the right way to say it either. I'm not trying to say simple like simplistic. I'm just saying that the simplicity of the presentation of the card is very effective, but it says so much. It says volumes. I love the Ten of Pentacles as well. Again, this interconnectedness, these roots that tie us all together. And then we're into the last suit of the pages and the Knights of Pentacles and the Queen. And then our final King. And there you have it. Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Turian. A masterpiece deck, if I do say so myself. Anna, you outdid yourself on this one, and congratulations. I wish you every success with this deck. I hope that everyone who tunes into this video purchases this deck, because I just think it's that special. So thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned. I'll be coming back with readings again soon. I'm trying to figure out a way in which I can manage doing readings in my work schedule, so that I can still enjoy doing them and not be stressed, and also be more consistent. So bear with me as I kind of try to find a way to do that. I might experiment with some things. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in and for taking a look with me at Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Turian, a new mass market deck released by US Games. Take care, everybody.